the billionaire who sold ice before refrigerators existed. Imagine living in America without refrigerators, no cold water, no ice cream, no chilled drinks after a long, exhausting day. And worst of all, food spoiled within hours. During summer, milk became dangerous to drink. Meat rotted quickly. People struggled every single day just to keep food fresh. At that time, Americans believed something very simple. Cold things were temporary. Ice belonged only to winter. But then one man came along with an idea so ridiculous. People genuinely thought he was insane. He wanted to become rich by selling frozen water. Not nearby, not locally. He wanted to ship giant blocks of ice across oceans to burning hot countries. Everyone laughed at him. But years later, this same crazy idea built one of the strangest business empires in American history, and the man behind it became known as the Ice King of America. His real name was Frederic Tudor. In the early 1800s, America was changing rapidly. Cities were growing, businesses were booming, but one major problem still existed. There was no reliable way to keep things cold. The wealthy sometimes stored winter ice underground, but ordinary people had almost no access to it. Then one freezing winter morning in Massachusetts, Frederic Tudor looked at massive frozen lakes and suddenly saw something nobody else could see. He saw money, massive money, while others saw useless frozen water. Frederic saw an opportunity that could change the world forever. His plan sounded absurd. He wanted workers to cut enormous blocks of natural ice from frozen lakes, load them onto ships, and transport them to hot cities where people desperately needed cold storage. Today that might sound normal, but back then, it sounded completely impossible, because everyone asked the same question. How do you transport ice for weeks without it melting? Scientists doubted him, businessmen mocked him, even his friends begged him to stop wasting money. Some people literally called him mentally unstable, but Frederic Tudor refused to quit. And in 1806, he risked almost everything he owned on his first shipment. Huge blocks of ice were cut from frozen lakes and packed into a wooden ship heading toward the Caribbean. Most people would have accepted defeat right there. But something strange happened. Instead of giving up, Frederic became obsessed. While sitting in prison, he kept asking himself only one question: how do I stop the ice from melting? That single question changed history. Eventually, Frederic discovered something simple but revolutionary: sawdust. Yes, ordinary sawdust from lumber mills. He learned that thick layers of sawdust could insulate the ice and slow melting dramatically. It was cheap, easy to find, and unbelievably effective. Suddenly, transporting ice over long distances no longer seemed impossible. The moment he got out of prison, Frederic went straight back into business. And this time, everything changed. The improved shipments worked far better. Ice began surviving long journeys. Customers became fascinated. Rich families started buying ice regularly. Restaurants wanted it. Hotels demanded it. Bars and cafes suddenly realized cold drinks could attract huge crowds. For the first time, cold luxury became a business, and America became addicted to ice. Within years, Frederic Tudor's empire exploded across the country. Massive ships carrying frozen ice traveled across oceans. American ice reached Cuba, Europe, South America, even India. Imagine how unbelievable that sounds. Ice cut from frozen American lakes, traveling under the burning tropical sun, to countries where natural ice barely existed. People who once mocked Frederic Tudor now called him a genius. Entire industries began depending on his business. Ice cream shops grew rapidly, fresh food lasted longer, medical supplies became easier to preserve. The world was slowly changing because of one man's stubborn obsession. And Frederic Tudor became incredibly wealthy, all because he sold frozen water. Soon, thousands of workers harvested ice every winter. Huge frozen lakes turned into giant industrial operations. Workers used massive saws to cut giant blocks from the ice surface. Horses dragged the blocks across frozen ground. Ships carried them worldwide. America's ice industry became enormous. Entire towns survived because of the ice trade, and Frederic Tudor ruled over it all like an emperor. That's why people started calling him the Ice King. But every empire eventually faces a new threat, and for Frederic Tudor's frozen empire, that threat came from machines. In the late 1800s, mechanical refrigeration technology began spreading rapidly. For the first time in history, humans could create cold air whenever they wanted. No frozen lakes required, no dangerous ocean shipments, no dependence on winter weather. At first, many people ignored the invention, but slowly, everything changed. Factories installed refrigerators, businesses switched to artificial cooling, homes eventually adopted electric refrigeration, and one by one, the natural ice companies disappeared forever. The business that once seemed unstoppable slowly collapsed into history. But Frederic Tudor had already proven something extraordinary. Sometimes the most ridiculous ideas become world-changing innovations. Think about it. A man was laughed at for trying to sell frozen water, yet his vision helped transform food preservation, restaurants, medicine, transportation, and modern life itself. Today, almost every refrigerator on Earth exists because pioneers like Frederic Tudor forced humanity to think differently. People mocked him, experts doubted him, he failed repeatedly, he even went to prison, but he refused to stop. And because of that obsession, he changed America forever. Velmoraxhub reminds you,